You want to start a nonprofit. And in this video, we'll show you in 7 steps how to get your nonprofit registered and set up. The 7 steps are: select a name, secure a domain name, get a board of directors, establish your bylaws, incorporate, have a board meeting, and file for your IRS tax exempt status. So let's take a look at each of these in turn. So to select a name, what we'd recommend is that you make a list of names that you like. Then you check those names against your state registrar to see whether or not those names are available in your state. Now you might wonder, why are we asking for more than one name? And this will become apparent in the next step when we start looking for domain names. So we made a list of potential names. We ranked them in the order that we like them. The next step is to go over to the domain registrar, pick a reputable domain registrar, and then check to see if these names are available in the order that you rank them. Now, keep in mind that there is some urban legend that sometimes when you search for a domain name and you think it's there and it's available, and you come back the next day, it's gone, and someone's trying to sell it to you at a much higher price. So, as you do the search, if a name comes up that you like, register it immediately for as long as your budget will support. So once you've got your domain name registered, you're back to the first page where you go back and you register your company with the state. So let's go to the next slide. This is where you've got to have a board of directors. Now you need to identify a board of directors who has certain diverse skills that'll help your nonprofit. For example, legal experience, finance experience, technology experience, fundraising experience, and operations experience. This insight can be tremendously valuable to your nonprofit. So you should be screening and finding these potential board members early in the game. You also need to let the board members know that they have certain roles to play and certain functions to play. Oftentimes, you expect board members to participate actively in fundraising. And if this is the case, you should let them know what the expectations are for the role that they're signing up for. And then, of course, you've got to educate them that the role of a board is governance, not day-to-day management. The next step is to set up your bylaws. What is it? The bylaws are the rules by which your nonprofit operates. This is an important part of the compliance to make your company sustainable and in compliance with all the rules and regulations. We'd suggest that you get your legal professional to take a first cut at drafting this for you, and that the management and the board then review it and fine tune it as needed, and run it by your legal professional to make sure it meets all the standards required before it's time to bring it to the board in a formal meeting at a later time to get it approved. Let's go to the next slide. Now that you've got the board, you found the name, you've got the domain, it's time to register your nonprofit. You register it in your state of business. And again, using a lawyer would be helpful, or a legal professional, because you need to make sure that you register in your state and you register it correctly so that it meets the requirements for you to file for your tax exempt status. A legal professional will make sure that all the necessary things are included in this process. And now it's time to have your first board meeting. At the first board meeting, your first action should be to approve the bylaws that you worked on. Once the bylaws are adopted, then your company has rules of engagement to operate under. The next thing to look at is to make sure that you keep minutes of all the meetings. So this meeting here, minutes need to be maintained, documented, and I would ask you to check with your legal professional on the level of detail you need to maintain in those minutes. So with the bylaws accepted, understanding that minutes need to be done, you can conduct other business like appointing officers and deciding on funding strategies, etc. And with that behind you, it's time to apply for your 501c3 status with the IRS. This is accomplished by filing a Form 1023. It'd be great to use a legal or a tax professional to file this document. Doing it right means that you'll get your approval sooner. If there are mistakes in it, it may delay the time it takes to get your approval. And now let's take a look at the sequence of events. We laid them out as if they were sequential. They're not. Some of them overlap. So, for example, while you're looking for names for your business, you should also be thinking about who your board members are. And then as you start to get these names together, you might want to determine when you are going to take a look at the domain availability. And once you have the domain availability and you've reserved it, Then it's time to go ahead and register the company. And immediately after registration, it's time to have your first board meeting and approve your bylaws. And then you can kick off your IRS form application. If you look at those dotted lines you see on the screen right there, between the board of directors and the incorporate, once you've got the board of directors set up and the incorporation complete, the next set of dotted lines say incorporation and the board meeting should happen as close together as possible. At that board meeting, you might say who's going to file the 1023, and that kicks off a little later. So this gives you some idea, sequence of events as they play out. Let's go to the next slide. So the 7 steps are listed here. It's to select a name, secure a domain, get a board of directors, finalize your bylaws, incorporate, have a board meeting, and file for your 1023 tax exempt status. With all that done, you've got your company up and running, your nonprofit's operational. And then some closing comments. We recommend that you use legal and tax professionals to set this business and company up. At the end of the day, your nonprofit is a company. It's got a tax exempt status, but it is a company. Having the right professional makes this process seamless. Things we did not touch on are the business infrastructure. Do you have an office? Do you have a virtual office? What kind of phone system do you use? What emails do you have? What's your website say? What's fundraising look like? How do you monitor and track it? What approaches do you utilize? What policies and procedures govern your day-to-day operations? Your bylaws said how things should happen, but it doesn't spell out the policies and procedures. And then what internal controls are there? Often donors want to know that you have good internal controls. You can provide good reporting. There are robust policies and procedures. So these are things we didn't cover here, but we will cover in other videos. So what we did today here is we covered step number 6 here on this list of 9 items. Assuming that you have a clear purpose for what you're doing, you have a mission statement, you have a board member identified, you have a bare bones budget to start the process, you've raised the initial capital or you funded it yourself, and that now that the company's set up, you can go out there and operationally raise capital and network and reach out and take care of the thank yous to the donors. If you haven't got all these other pieces, there are other videos that'll touch on each of these. I hope that you found this to be helpful. And if you'd like to get notifications as we pull these other videos out, like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching.